Good morning, Father's House friends and family. Thank you once again for joining us on our Sunday morning video service. I trust you all had a great Thanksgiving. You ate way too much turkey or ham or prime rib or whatever it was that you cooked or didn't cook, but hope you enjoyed it anyway. I just have a couple of things to talk about this morning. Our men's group is still meeting on Monday nights on Zoom. If you want to be a part of that, let Pastor Carl know. Our ladies group will be gearing up again on Thursday night at 6:30 on Zoom. If you want to be a part of that, we'd love to have you join us. Today's just our regular tithes and offering. And you know the drill. You can go to thefathershouse.org, click on the giving button, set it up as a one-time gift or a recurring gift. You can give to our missions that way also. You can also give to our stage remodel account that we're still trying to raise the money so that we can order for our virtual wall in the sanctuary. You know, when we first started this, we thought $20,000 sounded like a lot of money. Well, it still does. So anything that you can give towards that, we would really appreciate. You can mail a check to the Father's House at 133 Bernal Road, San Jose, California, 95119. Or if you live in the immediate area, Pastor Carl and I would be happy to come by and pick up a check. Or you can join us on Sunday mornings at service and drop it in the bucket. That's really all I have to cover today. So I guess we'll turn the time over to Pastor Carl and see what he has to teach us.
Well, good morning, Father's House. It's good to be with you. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. I trust that you did get all the food that you wanted on Thursday. Of course, you're probably still eating leftovers, which is a good thing. And usually by Wednesday of this week, you'll about be sick of turkey. So that means living here in the Bay Area that you can prepare now for Christmas. And you can prepare a nice prime rib, some crab, since it's crab season here in the Bay Area. And so crab is less expensive during this time of the year. And it's great crab. So I'm sure that because that's one of our holiday traditions here in Northern California, in the Bay Area, a lot of people will be doing that. That's what I'm thinking about doing for Christmas. Anyway, just here, and I kind of want to wrap up this Thanksgiving weekend and talk a little bit more about Thanksgiving. Because sometimes, well, we've come together as a family, spent a lot of time enjoying one another's company. Some of us didn't get to do that maybe. But still, the idea is during this time, is to really have an attitude of thanksgiving or an attitude of gratitude. And I don't want to spend much time talking today because I know that you're kind of wrapping up this weekend, but I do want to talk about the power of being thankful and the power of giving thanks as people of God, because it changes our perspective about life and it changes the way that we see life. If we walk around in our life always complaining about things and never being thankful for anything, we kind of end up becoming a victim. But what you find is that when people have an attitude of gratitude and they're thankful for what they have, they displace that attitude, that victim mentality, that victim attitude with this sense of wonder and of joy. And they kind of transcend whatever's going on in their life, realizing that as bad as it is, it can always get worse. But the fact of the matter is God ultimately still makes it all better and worth it as he provides us with goodness, his goodness, and also with happiness. And ultimately, our end and our destiny is with him. Now, there's a lot of places in Scripture that we can talk about thankfulness and thanksgiving. And today I wanted to go to kind of a special psalm on Thanksgiving that we pick up on Thanksgiving, get it on this season. No, and I meant on the topic of Thanksgiving. Well, kind of both, I guess. It's Psalm 136, and it talks about two things. It talks about giving thanks because of who God is and giving thanks because of his faithfulness. So there's this notion, first of all, we're going to read about being thankful because of who God is. And the second thing about that, out of our thankfulness, that our thankfulness is kind of rooted in the fact that we're covenant people of God. That God's made a covenant with us in his son, Jesus Christ. And in that covenant that we have with God, there's a relationship there with God where we take care of God's best interest to the best ability that we can, and he takes care of our best interest. So in this mutual exchange, one of the benefits of that, or one of the attitudes we should have whenever we're walking in covenant with God, is an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of thankfulness. And so I want to read this out of Psalm 136, and I don't know if I'll read it all, but I'll read a little bit of it so you kind of get the gist. But it's kind of written in the way of a liturgical form of a response. So the way this would be read is somebody would give the first part of the reading, and then the congregation would follow up with this line. And the line that they would follow up with is, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Now catch that. For his loving kindness is everlasting. And so you'll kind of see, you can hear the voice of the person that is reading, and you can hear the response of the congregation. So it reads kind of as this. Now listen to what it says about thanks. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Give thanks to the God of gods, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his loving kindness is everlasting. So you can kind of see how it goes, but there it's talking about giving thanks to God because he's good, giving thanks to God because he's the Lord above all, giving thanks to God because he's the God above all gods, and also giving thanks to God because he's the Lord of all lords, of all governing bodies. And now they're going to go into the covenant a little bit and talk about, because we're in covenant relationship with God, his faithfulness to us is everlasting. I don't know if we understand really what that means by his faithfulness is everlasting. I've often said from the pulpit that to understand God's faithfulness and why his faithfulness is everlasting, it's like saying in the idea of, can you imagine in all of your life, have you ever been a part of one day in your life where the sun didn't rise and the sun didn't set? From the day that you were born until the day that you were going to die, the faithfulness of the sun rising and the sun setting will be unchangeable. It will always happen. In the same way, what is being said is, from the rising of the sun till the going down of the same, the faithfulness of God is to be praised because he's going to be faithful to you. From the minute you're born until the minute you enter into eternity, I promise you this, that his faithfulness for those who walk in covenant with him is unchangeable, unswerving. It will always be there. Concerning the covenant that God's made with us, we pick it up again here in verse 4, and it says, to him alone who does great wonders, for his loving kindness is everlasting. To him who made the heavens with skill, for his loving kindness is everlasting. To him who spread out the earth above the waters, for his loving kindness is everlasting. To him who made the great lights, for his loving kindness is everlasting. The sun to rule by day, for his loving kindness is everlasting. The moon and stars to rule by night, for his loving kindness is everlasting. So that's speaking of creation. And this has to do with the deliverance of the people of Israel. To him who smote the Egyptian in their firstborn, for his loving kindness is everlasting, and brought Israel out from their midst, for his loving kindness is everlasting. With a strong hand and an outstretched arm, for his loving kindness is everlasting. To him who divided the sea asunder, the Red Sea asunder, for his loving kindness is everlasting. And it made Israel pass through the midst of it, for his loving kindness is everlasting. But he overthrew Pharaoh and his army in the Red Sea, for his loving kindness is everlasting. To him who led his people through the wilderness, for his loving kindness is everlasting. To him who smote great kings, for his loving kindness is everlasting. And slew mighty kings, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Sihon, the king of the Ammonites, for his loving kindness is everlasting. And Og, king of Bashan, for his loving kindness is everlasting. And gave their land as a heritage, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Even a heritage to Israel, his servant, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Who remembered us in our low estate, for his loving kindness is everlasting. and has rescued us from our adversaries, for his loving kindness is everlasting, who gives food to all flesh, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Give thanks to the Lord God of heaven, for his loving kindness is everlasting. It's pretty profound when you just kind of read through that, of realizing that he's saying, give thanks to God because his loving kindness is everlasting. The fact of that is that God's faithfulness and his loving kindness will always be there for us. Our attitude in all of those things should be to recognize that in the midst of where we live, that God is, first of all, the creator of it all. And because of that, his loving kindness is everlasting. His faithfulness is everlasting. And the second thing is that in all of our troubles, in all the things that we need deliverance from, to realize that his loving kindness is everlasting. That in anything he does, he's going to pursue us with his loving kindness, his goodness, what he has in store for us in a perfect end. When we started this journey at the day of our birth, until the day of our death, and we arrive with the Lord, his loving kindness is everlasting, and he has a plan for us. Sometimes that plan gets mixed up. Sometimes we get so focused on other things that we forget that God has a plan for our life. I guess today during this Thanksgiving season, the one thing I would want to ask you is simply this. Do you find in your life in the last year that you've been thankful, or have you been a victim? Have you been criticizing people and things and speaking negatively of things? Or have you been able to focus on the faithfulness of God and his loving kindness that's everlasting? At the end of the day, one of the most powerful things you'll ever find in your relationship with God and with other people and with yourself is when you have an attitude of thankfulness, of thanksgiving, of speaking positive things. From that very moment, your life will begin to change. And in his faithfulness, he'll be faithful from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to sleep. Our job is to be thankful. And I'm hoping that this season, the rest of this year, and in the next year, that you'll find an attitude of gratitude to be one of the primary things that people would speak of you and your character. Well, God bless you. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I told you this was going to be short, but I just want you to focus on a couple of things. The faithfulness of God, his loving kindness, and our attitude of gratitude. God bless you, and have a great rest of your weekend.